So there's this book I read a while ago. It's called Deaf Republic. It's by Ilya Kaminsky. I bought it at Barnes & Noble a while ago, and the thing about the book is that it's written by an author who is deaf, and according to videos I've watched online about this author, they are not a native English speaker or writer. However, he learned English as a result of wanting to be able to have a language that his family wouldn't be able to read. So he would write poems in English so that the people around him wouldn't be able to understand it. And according to the Guardian.com, Kaminsky once said, "It felt kind of wrong to write poetry about my father dying. How could a human become a pretty line in a poem? I was afraid it would hurt my mother or my brother, so I started playing with a language they didn't know." So yeah, that is one of the benefits of knowing a language other people around you don't know, that you can communicate in a way that other people won't understand. And you can keep secrets in a sense. Yeah, when I first got this book, I did read it in one sitting. The thing that really I loved about this book is it's really lyrical, meaning the words sound sort of like song lyrics in a sense, and also it kind of tells a story pretty much about these characters that live in this country that's being invaded, and a soldier shoots a deaf child and suddenly everyone goes deaf. And the book has some pictures like hand signals where people are trying to communicate. The whole book, it has this big non-literal feel. It feels like the author is talking metaphorical the entire book, which is something I love about poetry books. For example, the first line says, "We lived happily during the war. And when they bombed other people's houses, we protested, but not enough. We opposed them, but not enough." So yeah, there is actually a character code at the beginning of the book, which is actually something I kind of use in my books. How different characters have different lines throughout the poetry book. I did this with Leafy and Harmony by changing the accent of the font, for example, italics or standard print or bold, to denote a different character. But yeah, there's lots of heavy metaphors in this book that I love. Book starts out with one of the characters kneeling in front of the body of her cousin, and that's the deaf person who is killed at the beginning of the book, which causes the whole world around them to go crazy. Yeah, what I love about this book, if you want to understand it, all you have to do is really read it and think hard about it. Like, it's not one of those poetry books where you have to always just think and you might never ever come up with the true meaning of the poems. There's this one poem which talks about the invading soldiers that come into the country. They post up a sign, an announcement that says, quote, "Deafness is a contagious disease. For your own protection, all subjects in contaminated areas must surrender to be quarantined within 24 hours. It's amazing how this metaphor is used, because as everyone knows, deafness is not contagious. Like, you can't spread deafness to someone by being around someone else. It's a kind of disorder, but it just stays with one person normally. So this book carries this impossible metaphor forward throughout the entire book, which is what I like. I like these metaphors where they compare things that don't actually happen in the real world. It sort of abuses the English language in a way, and that is something I really love about poetry. And lots of these poems are short. You can actually read this book probably in like 1 hour if you want to do a second read to really understand what's going on here. Yeah, I do understand why this book has been praised so much. It's a book that really hits close to home on a lot of topics, especially since it's a very personal subject to the author. The author took something very personal to him and made it into a long kind of metaphorical story told through lyrical poetry. And also, I'm going to be reading a lot of the poems of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. A while ago, I bought a book which is a compilation of all his writings. It's called The Complete Poetical Works of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And it's a big, hefty book. The thing with Henry Wadsworth Longfellow is that a lot of his poems are very lyrical in nature, and they rhyme a lot, and they are very traditional. It's really amazing how, with modern poetry, everyone just stopped using all the forms, iambic pentameter, and rhyming, etc. Mostly everyone today with modern poetry uses free verse, which is nothing really wrong with that. It's just very interesting how there are so many poetical forms that people can use. But free verse is often I can see why people choose that, because people just want to throw some metaphors out there and express what they're thinking off the top of their head without having to be constrained by any forms. I think Walt Whitman really championed the idea of free verse. But the thing is, his poetry really establishes its own rhythm. For example, all of the poetry he writes really has a flow to it. You can't write poetry without thinking about the flow of the words that are being spoken. And the thing with poetry is that it's all heavily context dependent, meaning you can take some words out of a poem from a different time period, but if you don't have the context of what the things mean, or even the way the language has changed since then, or the references the poet is referring to, you're going to get lost really quick. I'm going through my Spotify playlists right now, and one thing I don't really know is if on Spotify, if you have your Facebook connected, if your friends automatically see all your listening activity, because that would be kind of embarrassing, I think. I do believe I changed the settings so that only I can see when I'm listening to something, I think. Yeah, it's tempting to conflate poetry with music, but for example, a poem and a song are two different things. Like, you could have a good song with minimal lyrics, but if you just took the lyrics out, it would be a bad poem. Not that there's a lot of poetry that's objectively bad, it's just that you always want to try to increase the metaphors in your poems so that more people will understand the powerful emotions that you're trying to express through your poetry. The show I've started watching, I think I've watched the first episode, is The Man in High Castle. Although my Amazon Prime account expires today and I'm not going to renew it, so we'll see if I can find another way to watch that show. But the premise is so interesting. It's originally from a book, and the story follows these characters who live in a world in which Nazi Germany and the fascist Japanese government took control of the United States after winning World War II. So there's this scene where there's this main character who has these, what do you call them, tapes, or like, not records, but they were actually movie tapes, that's what they are. She played the tapes and they show the Allies winning World War II, and she's like, oh, this can't be true, this has got to be fake. And then she figures out that it was this character has all these tapes who's called the Man in High Castle, who I guess is the mysterious figure throughout the series, who is going to be the, quote, probably the good guy of the series, who has a role in probably undermining the entire evil regimes through the story. And there's this musical artist who did a cover of a U2 song for one of the trailers, and it was one of the most powerful TV show trailers I've ever seen, I think. Another book I've read recently is Northern Lights, or The Golden Compass, by Philip Pullman. It's the first book in the His Dark Materials series, It follows this girl, Lyra, who is given custody of this device called an alethiometer, which points towards truth or something like that. And she lives in this world in which this fictional version of the Roman Catholic Church has seized control over the entire world as like an evil empire that is trying to invade other worlds actually and to control pretty much everything, which again is really a testament to how censorship works. If you censor ideas, then the idea that's popular, even though it's a really bad idea, will be the only one that is promulgated across your country. Which is why that regime in that book, in that that book series is able to have power for such a long time. I've watched some of the HBO BBC TV series. However, I couldn't get through it. Just stopped watching it because I didn't think it was that good, really. And my fiance couldn't finish watching it either. We were going to watch it together on HBO Max, I think, and we just stopped the series. We rarely don't finish series together, but that's one of those that we just didn't. We put down and never picked up again. And there was the movie in the 2000s that came out based on the Golden Compass. It was supposed to be the start of like a trilogy to, quote, rival the Lord of the Rings and Narnia series. But it actually was not that good because they kind of bastardized the series by making it more child-friendly, I guess, and less toning down the controversial aspects of the movie that were found in the book but are no longer found in the movies, even though I've heard that it gets more controversial as the series goes on. Except in the books, there are direct and explicit references to how the, quote, magisterium is the same organization as the Catholic Church, just like a mirror universe version. For example, it even mentions the papacy and how there is this pope named Pope John Calvin who abolished the papacy, and then after that there were nothing but a bunch of councils of bishops and scholars who get together to try to rule over the, quote, church. As many of you can see now, like the country, the United States, is very divided. We had half our country voting for Donald Trump, half voting for Joe Biden, pretty much. Split right down the middle with policies that are so totally opposed to each other, I'd say. So yeah, the idea is people need to find common ground despite their political differences. One thing I don't agree with is vilifying people who don't really share the same political opinions as you. You always have to be working towards unity and try to come together as a culture, because as I believe Abraham Lincoln said, house divided against itself cannot stand. And yet at some point when you get such diametric opposed divisions for a nation, it may be better off in one sense just to split up the country into different parts. But the thing is, since everyone is so married together as the United States and the history that's shared, there'd be different, even within regions that would want to separate, you'd still have people that want to be part of the same country. So like it would cause so many problems. Like people have property everywhere and they'd have to move, and that's why when you have a nation with a set of laws and constitutions, it's kind of like a pact that you really can't get out of because of how finances work, because of how everyone is so connected by family ties and friends ties, and like even if you wanted to separate, like in some kind of war happened, there are so many people even within the jurisdictions that are controlled by certain groups that don't believe in them. That it's not like in California you have all liberals, or like in states like North Carolina or South Carolina you have all conservatives. It's a huge mix, and states switch each time. So the thing is, politics, it's really fluid, and the beliefs people share, they can change as time goes on. I just don't think, for example, like California will ever vote for a Republican again, but that's because there are still a lot of conservatives in California. It's just that they're outnumbered like by 2/3, I think. 1/3 of the state is conservative. The other 2/3 are more left leaning. And right now, I'm just going to read a poem, since many people may not be familiar with this. This is by Emily Dickinson. It's poem number 479, Because I Could Not Stop for Death. Emily Dickinson. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves in immortality. We slowly drove, he knew not haste, and I had put away my labor and my leisure too for his civility. We passed the school where children strove at recess in the ring. We passed the fields of gazing grain. We passed the setting sun. Or rather he passed us. The dews drew quivering and chill. For only gossamer in my gown, my tippet and my tool. We paused before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground. Since then 'tis centuries, and yet feels shorter than the day I first surmised the horses' heads were towards eternity. So yeah, see what I mean with that poem? We get a lot of rhyming. We get a very established meter with that poem. It's sort of like really sounds like a song because of how strict the meter is with that song, and all the rhyme in places where you'd expect it to be. I had to look some words up though. I don't know what some of these words mean. Let me just define these. For example, tippet. So a tippet is a narrow piece of clothing that goes over the neck and shoulders. And tulle is a type of material used for some women's clothing. And even the beginning of this poem, it gives you the idea of what the poem is about. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me, which really shows that you have no control over the future and the way it goes. She's in the carriage, she doesn't have control over what's happening as it's driving slowly. For example, there's this line that says, we passed the fields of gazing grain. We passed the setting sun, or rather he passed us. Meaning the death is the thing doing the action, meaning the person who's living has no control over it. And then the last stanza, which is really genius, since it is centuries and yet feels shorter than the day, I feel surmise the horse's head were towards eternity. Really showing how time passes really fast once all the days come together as one unit. When you think of it individually, it seems longer, but as the days keep adding up together, you realize how fast your life has gone by. So yeah, this is a really deep poem, and the thing is, a lot of people have interpreted this poem a lot differently than other people. And the thing is, I don't have it on the screen right now, but hopefully people will be able to follow along with what I'm saying. I don't know if talking about poetry is the right demographic for Minecraft videos, but there's a first time for everything, I think. Yeah, and it is really hard to follow on with poetic commentary if someone doesn't have the poem actually in front of them. So you can actually look this up if you want to speak. Because I Could Not Stop for Death by Emily Dickinson. And I really started to get more into Emily Dickinson after the TV series came out, which was by Apple TV. Watched some of that. They kind of modernized the character, changed her the way the characters speak. They made it modern English instead of the English that was spoken in the 19th century. However, the setting is still 19th century. It's just that they changed the language a little bit. Or rather, not a little bit, but a lot. It wasn't seeking to be an accurate reflection. It's more like a period piece of what people at this time think about Emily Dickinson and her work, which is really a genius idea. It's something similar to what I've done with my Walt Whitman series of poetry books, except the difference there is I actually bring Walt Whitman to the 21st century instead of the 19th century, which is a unique idea. I've never really seen someone do that before. Take a literary character or like a literary figure, rather, and have them change the time in which they live. There's actually so much you could do with that idea, with all different kinds of literary figures or characters. My first Walt Whitman book, it's called I Know Nothing But Miracles. Walt Whitman Speaks to the Modern World. I have a lot of my own work in there, but it also covers a lot of poems that Walt Whitman wrote, but mostly it's just phrases that I take from his poems and splice them intertwined with my own original work. So yeah, that Emily Dickinson poem will be the poem for this week's episode. Right now I got, like, the episode today is like an hour and 30 minutes. Let me get the exact timestamp here. An hour and 51 minutes and 32 seconds. So that's how long I'm going to be talking for today. Not sure if I'll be able to record this all in one day or if it'll take longer, because it takes a lot of effort to come up with topics to just talk about for 2 hours and not stop. I think this is really good practice, though, to get in the mental shape to actually do something similar to like talk radio, if that ever happened, but I doubt that would happen. But just saying, I could do it if I do this enough. Or even like extensive daily podcasts. This is like something you can carry over. I like encourage all of my subscribers to actually just focus on something they want to be good at and keep doing it, and don't stop until you see results. That's always like a good thing to do. Like if you really want to do something, you got to practice at it, and sometimes it takes 5 years, 6 years to see any results or be good, but you still have to practice. Like it's true what they say, practice does make perfect. So yeah, Kurt J. Mack, the YouTuber, has been traveling to the far lands in Minecraft for the past like 9 or 8 years, and he's still got 9 or 8 years to go. He's like halfway there, I think, if I'm correct. But the thing is, he's doing it at such a slow pace. He does like a 30-minute episode every few days or a week, but other people can do like, and that's all he travels in the Minecraft world. But actually what happened is this other YouTuber named Kilo Crazy Man actually made it to the far lands in Minecraft, and that took him about, how long did that take him? Like 9 months, I think. He went 14,000 kilometers in Minecraft in 9 months, which is a great historic kind of achievement that almost no one would be able to make. What happened was he was actually doing the streams and the videos and posting them on YouTube, and another YouTuber actually was doing the same thing and started catching up with him. So what he had to do, he had to put out more videos than usual and quicker so that he could get the world record of the first person to make it to the far lands of Minecraft by just walking. Yeah, and I've got to still do my walking journey videos that I do in real life, just walking around, getting steps in. But I'm not sure if I'll be able to do those because I'm putting a lot of effort right now into this Minecraft series. But of course, I'm going to always be walking around when I get the chance, to using the app Map My Walk to track my mileage with how many kilometers I go. And what we've done, actually, I've actually added my fiance to the thing. So she has a Fitbit tracker, so she's going to add her kilometers in that she walks per day into our spreadsheet. and we'll meet somewhere in the middle probably, instead of me just walking directly all the distance. This is a big development that we're actually meeting halfway in the middle, hoping this will get us to be able to get the distance in a much shorter amount of time than we originally thought it would take. But yeah, it is going to be like, if we want to do it anytime soon to get to the end of the journey, it would take a long time just to finish that. The thing that I like about this video series is that I can just talk about whatever I want. Like, there's no constraints on what I'm doing. Like, for other things, like if you're writing a book or like doing an essay or something like that, you have to really zero in on the single topic you want to talk about. But with just talking to a microphone for audio over gameplay commentary, you can really talk about whatever you want, as long as the audience stays interested, I guess. As I said earlier, this kind of speech is what I love about the internet and the nation as a whole, that there's nothing stopping you from just saying whatever you want and broadcasting it wherever you want it. As I said before, there is a lot of censorship online, but I don't believe that anything should be censored that's not illegal. I think on like, especially like a business platform that has a monopoly on social media, that no one else uses anything. They own most of the market space for a certain type of social media platform, like Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook are all very different kind of platforms. For example, Facebook, it's just like a thing you share, things you share with your people you know or have met in real life. Twitter is like anyone you want to talk to, but really short stuff. And with YouTube, it's my favorite platform of all, because you can just post anything you want, really. Anything you want that you have the rights to post. And you can just start speaking in front of a microphone, and then you'll have a lot of people have the potential that is, to hear you. And that's so great because of how long the videos can be that you want to post. They can be as long or as short as you want. They can be as short as 1 minute, as long as, like, I don't even know what the max limit on YouTube is for videos. I think it's like 10 hours. So yeah, if you want to post your epic fantasy novel audiobook on YouTube, you can. The one that you wrote. If you write something, you can post it on there, get famous that way. It's really that easy, until you get banned for whatever reason, and that's happened before to quite a few people. One thing I'm always worried about is me losing all of my data for the projects I work on. I've been working on a lot of book projects. They're all on a hard drive, but that hard drive gets backed up to Google Cloud. The thing is, I used to simply back it up with another hard drive. So I had two hard drives plugged in, and they'd both back up the same thing with file history on my computer. But then what I did, I checked the file history, and I looked for a file that I had on the other hard drive, the original hard drive, and I couldn't find it. So therefore I was like, oh, this has screwed me over. Like this Windows file history wasn't actually reliable. So like, either I got to find a more reliable local solution to automatically back up files on one hard drive to the other, or I have to find a digital online solution. And I'm not too fond of the way Google handles things with online backup, etc., and holding all my files. However, I'd much prefer to do it locally. But the thing is, I didn't really think through like what solutions there are to get hard drives that will, not hard drives, but software for the hard drives that will back it up correctly. So I'd have to do research for that. I just neglected to do the research, took the easy way out, and just used Google Drive as my backup platform. And I've noticed a lot how my ability to do public speaking, especially like on YouTube, has increased over the years. For example, just like 3 years ago wasn't nearly at the level it is now. As I've done more live streams and other things, and more kinds of like public conversations than usual. I've noticed that I've been able to talk for longer periods of time without having to stop, which is part of the reason why I'm able to do this video right now. So something I've learned relatively recently is that there's actually a application out there, or rather a plugin for Minecraft servers that lets you play cross-platform with Java players and Bedrock players. And for those of you who don't know, if you don't know, Bedrock is kind of the console edition of Minecraft, which is compatible with mobile phones and Windows 10, as well as different consoles. And this plugin for Minecraft Java actually lets Bedrock players join any kind of Java server that has the plugin installed in the Java server. I also believe it also lets you join it if you have it installed on your phone natively, but that's an extra step you have to take that lets you join any other server that, even if it doesn't have native support, but it does mess with your anti-cheat. I recently tried it and it did work very well. The only real issue is it doesn't work well with anti-cheat and it does have some bugs. This is really inspiring me again to make a Minecraft server that works with both Bedrock and Java Edition. As a side note, I did have a Minecraft server on this channel for like an entire month actually. But at the end of the month, like I had no longer had the space I was gonna use to promote the channel, and didn't have enough time to moderate the server. Even though it is an anarchy server, but there's still some things you need to do to upkeep a server to make sure it stays online. That was pretty much the most fun experience I've had with the Minecraft game so far, I think. We met some players that immediately decided to grief us a few times, but also had some great friendships, I think. So I did try using the Geyser MC, which is the cross-platform plugin, with an Eternos Minecraft server, which is a free Minecraft server solution, except the only drawback is it doesn't let it stay up 24/7 for a server. Like you're not gonna have a free service that stays up 24/7. It would cost way too much. And my main concern was that the anti-cheat doesn't really work with the main Geyser MC plugin, which allows cross-platform play. The other problem is you either have to log in with your Java account, even if you're on Bedrock platform, to play with the Java players, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of having to log in, of using Bedrock to log in with it. Why don't you just download the Java client if you already own it? Or on the other hand, you can disable username authentication. The problem with that is I've heard that if you use that, a hacker can just spoof whatever name they want and play as any character name they choose to play in your Minecraft world, even impersonating the owner of the server. What I really like about Minecraft is that anarchy servers exist, because with those, it's really playing the game the way it's meant to be played. The only problem that, as I've mentioned earlier, is you can't have more than 200 players online at a time, which is a really sad thing regarding Minecraft, because imagine if you have a world that's bigger than the size of planet Earth, and you can just travel anywhere in it, and you can have as many players as you can get on it, and they still won't be able to fill up the entire world. That limit needs to be changed in the future, because if they change that Minecraft will literally be the best game that's ever been made, especially regarding multiplayer. Today has been an exhausted day because I've been having some sleep problems. But at the same time, regardless of what happens with that, I'm always optimistic about everything that's happening. Always try to keep an optimistic attitude. Also, the sleep issues have prevented me from really exercising today, going for a walk. So I'm just staying here doing some videos, or working on the content for the videos. And I don't know if anyone else struggles with these same kind of sleep issues or if I'm kind of alone like that. Really trying to bunker down, get my fitness under control, get my life under control, and improve my life one step at a time, because that's how it works. With small little steps, you get better at things. But I realize when I do something, I often go overboard more often than not when I commit myself to something. That's something I've noticed. I was doing a lot of running a while ago. This was years back. And I noticed that after I ran, I for like the next couple of hours, I ran so much that I was having a lot of trouble just walking. You've got to really train up to being athletic and being able to run a lot. It takes a lot of dedication. It takes all kind of muscle training, all kind of cardio, mental, physical, heart training, etc. All kinds of different body parts that need to be stronger in order to run faster for longer periods of time. For example, your heart strength has to be a lot better to pump all that blood all over your body. It's also starting to get to the days where I'm really missing the time when coronavirus wasn't a thing. Today feels like the latest month of April 2020. It just never goes away. Before, we could go to all kinds of events, meet new people, and do things like that. And it is getting hard. And it will be hard to make new friends, especially if I move out of the city I live in and move to a different city. Like, how am I going to make new friends with everyone so afraid of having social interaction? At least if coronavirus is still going on at that point. So yeah, how am I supposed to meet new people, have a close friendship with people if I can't even go to any kind of in-person public events? Even like a book club or like a Bible study, people don't even do that stuff anymore. Or if they do, it's harder to find. It's not as abundant as it was before, and people just went out without a care of getting closer to people. Or without restrictions, when it wasn't seen as like a political issue, just to be around the people you love or care about. Or even to go out and do the things you want to do, like parties, or if that's what you're into, or other kinds of social events. It's not just the mask wearing, it's also like stay away from other people. And I do realize corona is a real problem. But to some extent, there has been overreaction. You have to admit that. I once saw this video on Twitter that this person posted while commenting on it. And the video was just 6 older people sitting outside having a conversation in chairs together. And the person who was posting about the video, commenting on it, commented saying, "Look at these sick individuals outside without their mask," and he used all these cuss words to describe what they were doing, and it was just horrible, like vilifying people for their life decisions to be closer to the people they care about. And I felt like just the fact that someone could say that about something so simple was such a horrible thing in my mind. These people, they care about each other, they just want to be near each other, and like they get accused of helping spread the coronavirus. And I don't think people should be vilified for that kind of stuff. And once again, I don't talk about politics on this channel. It's not a thing, but this is something that was bothering me and I wanted to bring it up. I know the vid is going around like on record numbers. We have record numbers of cases recently in the United States, pretty much topping everything else. Although I'm not sure about the number of deaths and how that relates to the number of cases. I do believe that everyone should do what they can to social distance and stop the spread of the virus. But the thing is, I don't believe in vilifying people if they choose not to do that. Never thought I'd see people doing something so simple and being attacked for it so viciously. At the same time, maybe these kind of people are just misguided or need to be corrected or something like that, not to be vilified. They just need to be gently swayed to a different position, I think. So there's this band called Pale Waves, and I don't know if I talked about them before. They're from the UK. They have this album called My Mind Makes Noises, and it's definitely one of my new favorite albums. On the record, they have a song called Came In Close. It's a good song. And also the song called Drive. So if you listen to My Mind Makes Noises by Pale Waves, those are the 2 tracks I'd look out for to listen to. You'll definitely know what I'm talking about when you listen to those two songs. So the thing about poetry is that it's a lot of it is hard to understand on the surface level without digging in deeper or knowing the context of what the poem's about. That can only come through, for example, knowing something about the poet's life, knowing about the time period, knowing about the poet's intentions. And this is why I try to write poems people can easily understand when I write them. Not that they don't have depth, but that there's a sense that people can grasp the meaning so that they can connect to it and relate to it. It's sort of like how songs are accessible, but at the same time they can have very deep meaning. One thing I like to do a lot if I'm writing poetry, especially when I'm really tired or too tired to lift up a pen or write on a keyboard, especially after like a long kind of walk or something like that. What I like to do is I lie down on my bed, put some instrumental music on, and then just start speaking the words I want to speak into my phone and recording the voice, and then coming back, transcribing it and editing it later when I have time. Because really the bulk work with poetry, it's not the editing or the transcribing, it's getting the first thing on the page. So that's why as long as you get as much output methods as you can, you will be a better poet. That's why the best poets, they often have a notepad right next to their bed, so if they come up with anything during the night, they'll be able to write it down. Some people do actually have a better time speaking with their voice and recording it than they do typing on a document or writing on a sheet of paper. I've heard that there were some authors who actually had all of their works transcribed for them. They spoke what the whole book was, and then someone else wrote it down for them. That's actually possible, but it's hard. I can imagine it'd be hard without actually having everything you've written so far to reference, because a lot of people, they need to read back on what they wrote so far, especially with a novel, to remember what they've written already, to continue the continuity of the story. But a lot of that can actually be fixed with editing. When you write, you just want to get all your thoughts out in the paper as quick as possible, and then worry about editing and filtering it out later. However, writing on a sheet of paper, for example, can be very slow and tedious for a great many people. And something a great many people, like a lot of people, don't realize is that how hard it can be for someone to get their bearings and get out of poverty, especially when they're struggling financially in their life. Because when you have more money, it's easier to stay having more money. But when you have less, it becomes really harder to work your way up in the system to get out of poverty. And a lot of people don't even understand this. People with less money are not less moral than the people with more money, or have less a right to live in the society. That's something I firmly believe in. And poverty can be such a terrible issue with some people, which is why I have such a passion for trying to end homelessness in the United States. Why I've linked in the description the Coalition for the Homeless link in the description of this video and the other videos of this series. And people really don't know how bad it is until they experience it. For example, I've seen videos on YouTube of this person experiencing homelessness was speaking with this guy on a camera, and the guy on the camera was telling him, the person who was experiencing homelessness was telling the cameraman how no one basically listens to you when you're in a bad situation. It's like if you knew someone from high school and you're experiencing homelessness and you meet them again, you talk to them, you're cool buddies in high school or whatever, and they won't even listen. They don't even care about the good experiences you had before. It's just because they see that you're homeless, they're less willing to give you money. Like I've seen videos of, there was a kid who was begging for money, who had some more expensive clothes on, and then there was a kid who was begging for money in rags. They treated the kid who was in rags so poorly that the kid just went away and cried. But the kid who was in a bad situation but was in better clothes, they treated that kid a lot better. So it really shows how we perceive people who are homeless as having somehow deserved what they're going through or something, because in people's minds, how could they get into that situation without having caused it themselves? And even if they did cause it themselves, that doesn't mean don't deserve to be helped, or any kind of person to be there to help them, I think. I mean, this is a big place where the church is really failing to help people who are in need, because that's really the place of the religious body, is to help out the people who are most vulnerable. But that's not what people perceive. They instead turn to the government as the sole helper of those in need, which is not good. So yeah, as I was saying before, that situation, it's only like the good things in life that are happening, that people finally care about your situation. No one wants to hear from you when you're at your lowest, and that's not good. That's a problem in human nature. Yeah, I'm pretty convinced that's not just a learned behavior. It's something that's part of human nature, to ignore people who don't have the things they have. But that's, at the same time, that's not a mindset we want to have. Not all things that are natural are good. Cancer is natural, but it's not good. So therefore, this inclination to not help people is not something that we want to keep going forever. We have to fight against it. We have to actively strive to fight it. But what these people don't realize, or people in general, me included, is how easily things can swing around towards you. The person who's it's going to affect is actually you, because at any given time, there could be some sort of economic collapse or problem, and like, you weren't there to help the other people, so how can you expect them to treat them differently than you treated them? What people mostly want, which is actually a good thing, is to have a comfortable life where they can live free of severe pain and illness until they die of a natural death. A relatively healthy and safe life. It's really the simple things that people want. I recently watched a video by the YouTuber Thor Skywalker, in which he talks about Star Wars and how it relates to the world and other topics like that. And by world, I mean the real world, how the mythology relates to the real world. And this video title is called Why the Star Wars Prequels Are More Relevant Today Than Ever, Sunday Commentary, uploaded by Thor Skywalker on November 22nd, 2020, on YouTube. He does a lot of Star Wars videos in general, including one in which he announced that he plans to rewrite the sequel trilogy with an accompanying live-action audiobook. And that's exactly the reason why I subscribed to his channel in the first place, for that video. It was like a rewrite of the sequel trilogy, as if he wrote it, his version of the sequel trilogy. So as I was saying, that video he made called Why the Star Wars Prequels Are More Relevant Today Than Ever, he talks about how the Star Wars prequels relate to the modern world and the current political climate. There's this line in the prequel trilogy in Revenge of the Sith in which Padme, Anakin's wife, Luke's mother, says, this whole war is a result of a failure to listen on the part of both sides. And the opening crawl to Revenge of the Sith says, evil is everywhere, there are heroes on both sides of the war. In a sense, that means well-intentioned, good people. And at the same time, it was Palpatine, the Emperor, or the person who becomes the Emperor, who is the one pulling the strings behind everything, causing all the problems that are going to happen throughout the series. And Thor Skywalker makes an excellent point, which I just want to reiterate here. That's when people start gravitating towards extremes of not listening to the other person, is when they start to vilify the other person and see them as totally evil and not be able to see their perspective, which often, in many cases, causes them to be totally evil themselves. Most people just want to live a comfortable life the same as you, pretty much. So when you start vilifying another person who is just trying to live through their life like you are, it causes severe problems. Like, you have to be able to see how other people think to be like have an ethical outlook on life. Yeah, these were just my thoughts for the day. It took me a while to come up with this video, but I'm going to let the video run. It's going to go on for like another, hour or so. But this is the end of my commentary, so you can end the video about as soon as I sign off, because that's when the video is just going to continue playing the gameplay footage, but I won't be commenting anymore. I love doing these videos, and I look forward to doing many more of these videos, And I think what's going to happen is, just as I said earlier, when I get to a certain point where I don't have anything else to say, usually at about the 50-minute mark probably, I will just let the video run, or even at like the 30-minute mark, I'll just let the video run, so I can have proof that I did this um, epic travel to the end of the world. So I appreciate everyone who's listening. As Gamer Rant says, hope you enjoyed this video in some facet or form, and please do what you can to make the world a better place. There's a lot of people who are in a lot worse situations, especially during this whole COVID crisis, even in countries that you wouldn't think about normally. So just always be thinking about things like that. Like, even if you're not going to do anything at the time, always be conscious of that. It'll really improve the atmosphere of things. So once again, this is Joey. Thanks for listening. Signing off. Bye for now.